Okay. Hi, this is Cynthia Horner from Right On Digital and Right On Magazine, and I am so pleased to be here with Lois Powell from the Chantels, and she is one of the celebrities that is appearing in this new book called Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow, which comes out in September. So, Lois, as a person who is one of the singers who actually kicked off the girl group movement, how do you feel about being such a great part of history?
It was never in my wildest dreams. It's humbling and it is exciting. And uh, I just never thought that people would be playing our music in the 21st century.
Now, when you all first started, of course, you were teenagers. And at that time, was it more like a hobby for you or just an after school interest? Or what would you say your ambitions were as a teenager?
Okay. My ambition as a teenager was to be a nurse. And so I wasn't really focused, as far as it was fun to sing. We loved singing in the choir. And uh, the choir itself had gotten many, many awards, national awards for our singing. And just as a hobby, I know Arlene Smith, who was she started the group, and she had a wonderful, wonderful voice as young as she was, wanted to be a singer, and she wanted to be, a star, basically. But I don't know that that's what the rest of the girls wanted. I know Jackie hadn't decided what she wanted to do. So we were young, and but I always knew I wanted to be a nurse. So
Oh,
anyway, we got together and we would sing anywhere as a group. And I wasn't first in the group. There were some other girls, a couple of other girls, and then at a later date, I joined the group. I can't even remember how that happened. But anyway, we would sing on the corners like the guys did because, if they could do it, why not us? So, and then we joined we did contests in the neighborhood at the public schools. We went to Catholic school. And so we would join and we would win some. We'd lose some. We would go down to New York City to roller skate. And while we were on the train, the trains were not like they are now. And they had this little booth part where you first go in and then you open a door and then go into the regular part of the train. So we would sing out in the booth part and the doors would be open most of the time and people would kind of look to see who was singing. And that was fun because, they seemed to like it. They would clap. So we just sang wherever. It was just one of those things. And we were going to New York City to go to a show, a rock and roll show. I don't even know if we had the money to get in, but we decided to dress alike. As we were walking down Broadway, a guy came out of the building, I think it was the Brill building, and he said, "Oh, are you sisters?" And we said, "No, we sing." And he invited us up to his office. We said, "Well, five of us, one of him." So, okay, yeah, we'll go. So we went up and he was talking to the girls, and I was looking out the window and I saw Richard Barrett and David Clowney and Ronnie. I can't remember Ronnie's last name, but they were the Valentines. And we knew they were singing at that theater we were trying to get to. So I yelled down and said, "Hey, stuck up, can't you speak?" And that got their attention. And they looked up and Richard said, and then the girls came to the window and then he waved us to come down. So we went down and he asked the same question, "Are you sisters?" We said, "No, we sing." So he said, "Well, sing something." And we sang one of the songs that we stole part of it from a guy group and then made up some words for ourselves. And he says, "Oh, you have potential. I could get you a contract." And we said, "Right." He said, "Well, I didn't lie to Frankie Lyman. We knew he had discovered Frankie." And so he took Arlene's number and we didn't hear from him. It felt like months and months and months, but I think Jackie might have called him and said, "Did you forget us?" And then he did call Arlene's parents, set up a meeting, went to the meeting, and he explained that he would rehearse us and then take us to George Goldner and let him listen to us. And the rest is history. So
Wow. Well, it took you being brave to say, "Hey, stuck up." that that
I
got
know
that got their attention. Now back
it did.
now, yeah, now back then, you said that you all decided to dress alike. Was it difficult to get wardrobe at that time? Because nowadays everybody can go on the internet, get clothing and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But back then it was more challenging. A lot of times people had to have a seamstress make the clothes because there may not have been the amount of clothing that was needed or the right sizes. So, um, did you guys have any wardrobe challenges?
well, we were just dressing. We went to a local store and we there was skirts and blouses, and so we bought 5 blue skirts, and it was hard because I Jackie and I were tiny, and they didn't have petite clothes when we started singing, and
Right,
her mother her mother could sew, my mother could sew, and Sonia's mother could sew. So they would naturally alter the dresses so they would fit the skirts. So we had the skirts on, and I think Renee describes it that we had on white socks and white bucks, which I hated because I had to wear those kind of shoes to when I went was in high school, because I went to a Catholic high school, and we had these blouses, and I guess the blouses fit, and so that was our attention getter, I guess, to dress alike. But it wasn't like we were looking to have a uniform because we had no reason to have a uniform. It was something that would catch people's attention, I guess. At
oh,
any rate, once I think we hadn't recorded yet. Um, Maybe we did. And I think Jocko was having a show at the Apollo, and Richard said, I want you girls to, do this, guest kind of thing on the show. And we were scared to death, and we knew that, they had the talent show on Wednesdays or whatever day it was, and that people would get booed off the stage, and we were thinking, oh my God, you know, what if we get booed off the stage? But anyway, we did the show and people clapped, they liked us. And then shortly after that, I believe, was when He's Gone was released. So,
wow.
and the uniforms that we had for that, we had gotten these dresses, I believe, and then I think it was Jackie's mother or Sonia's mother had sewed some. I have a picture of it, but it is hysterical. And we had little tiaras, and we looked like little girls. I mean, we didn't look like women, and because the dresses were women type dresses, and our parents said, "No, you can't go on a stage looking like that. We have to make you look like girls, teenagers." So
Yeah, I was going to ask
that's what we
about
did.
that. Mhm.
And then shortly after that, we had a couple of other dresses, but they were all like Sunday go to church kind of dresses in the beginning. I mean, we had no reference. All the other singers that were female were older than us. And so they wore appropriate to that age. And we were kids.
Mhm. Now,
Sonia was 15. I was 16. I think Renee was 14. Jackie was few months younger than me, so she was about 15, and Arlene was 15. So,
now, how did your parents feel about the fact that you all wanted to perform at different places? Because I know that a lot of parents are very strict, but of course, sometimes parents do want their children to have opportunities. And you said that
mhm.
you dressed age appropriately, so I guess that made it a little better. Is that correct?
Yes. My mother was not impressed at all. because that was not what she wanted me to do. She liked music, but in my house, we listened to classical music, or we listened to what was then a radio show called Make Believe Ballroom, and they played everybody, um, Ella Fitzgerald, they would play Frank Sinatra, whatever. And it was that kind of music. And other than that, there was classical music. My aunt lived with us. We had a big house, and my aunt was a piano teacher, and she taught at the house. So Jackie took lessons from her. Arlene took lessons from her. And her concerts at that time were at Carnegie Recital Hall. So the two of them played. We didn't take, my sister and I did not take piano lessons from my aunt. We wouldn't have practiced for her. So we took piano lessons privately from other people.
Oh,
But
okay.
my aunt recognized that Arlene had a voice, and she would have parlor concerts. And if she had a piano student who had another talent, she would always highlight that. So Arlene would sing at these parlor concerts, and I mean, she could sing classical, and then she liked jazz, so she would do some jazz stuff, but not at the concerts, but she would do that on her own. Um, so there was definitely her talent that was at the forefront, because that's really what Arlene wanted to do. Um, and so that was her, and her parents backed that up. I mean, they were very, very encouraging for that. Sonia had just gotten here from Jamaica not too long before we formed the group. And her parents, certainly her mother, was, I don't know about this stuff, because they didn't know anything about rock and roll music, and it wasn't even called that at the time. And Renee, interestingly, her parents were on the circuit. Her mother, I think, was a singer, and her father played, I think, saxophone. And so they were kind of on the circuit a little bit. And so her exposure was more in the jazz vein, that kind of thing. But she was a member of the choir, and so we all learned how to sing in Latin. So, so everybody had their kind of family traditions and whatever. But my mother didn't stop me. She didn't say I couldn't do it. And Sonia's parents, they went along because they figured if one parent said it was okay, then it must be okay. So that's how we proceed.
Now we talked about wardrobe. What was it like with hair and makeup? Because now, of course, there are all these stores,
Yeah.
all these different brands. Back then, it wasn't that way.
Hmm.
So, what did you all do when you had to perform on stage?
At that age, I don't really think we wore makeup per se. We would put lipstick on, and we paid more attention to what our hair looked like. So, we would have our hair fixed, and, we'd go to the hairdresser and get it done. And then, uh, if I can remember, we had our own hairstyles. I mean, there was no such thing as put a wig on it. So we just would do our own hairstyles, and hope and pray that the weather wouldn't be too humid.
Oh, yeah, I
But that's what we
understand
did.
that. Now, in terms of performing at different venues where they had the different male performers, how did
Mhm.
most of the male performers perceive you? Did they like the groups, or did they feel that there was some type of competition, or what was the climate? Because I know how it was with Motown. That was like a family because of
Yeah.
Gordy and the chaperone,
Hmm.
everyone traveling together. But you all had a different experience. So what was that like?
It was like being locked in our dressing rooms and not floating around the theater. And the guy groups would come and kind of hang out in the wings when we took the stage, but and they would clap and they would say we were good, because we had a different sound. We didn't have a sense of gospel or even spirituals, because the nun who was training us in choir really homogenized the spiritual. So I didn't really learn about spiritual singing until I was an adult and was singing with several choruses. But we didn't have that kind of exposure. And because we were young and our parents had warned Richard that nothing better happened to us or else. So we got locked in our dressing room. We were not allowed to socialize with the guys. Every now and if Richard was around and like Anthony and the Imperials were hanging out, he would kind of let them come and stand in our doorway. They couldn't come in the room, but they could stand in the doorway. And so we would talk back and forth that way, but we were very protected. So
Great.
we didn't, and there was no competition. I mean, we just, when we were humble, kind of, we came out and we said, I think we did a good job. And Richard would say, you did a good job, but you didn't do something right. Or, and so we would never, he would always say we were okay, but he didn't want us to get big headed, I guess. So he would just say, yeah, that was all right. Next time you better do better.
Now, if someone were
So
to ask you, what would you say your legacy was on music? What would you um, answer?
I think that I can't really talk to it from my perspective, but I can do it from other people's, because when we do a show, I mean, we did a big show here in Delaware when last June, and it was our show, so we got to sing what we wanted to sing, not what the promoters wanted us to sing, and we went from from Chantel stuff, that we did some jazz stuff, we did some old standards, and it was just our show. And when I spoke to people afterwards, they said, you sound like you did when you first started recording. You sound just like angels. And that has been what people say to us every time we do a show, no matter where it is we go. So I think there was something we did. We don't rehearse. Because we're scattered all over the place. But when we do come together, it's like we have this innate memory. And when we get together and we start to rehearse, sometimes there's some kinks and then, somebody's on somebody else's note. But for the most part, we try to capture what we did when we first started singing and preserve that sound. So I guess it's that I I really don't know that we had a cohesive group with a cohesive sound that seems like it's just as contemporary today as it was back in the 50s.
Yeah, you stood the test of
Yes.
time, and you're very fortunate because there are a lot of singers in the industry who were not able to preserve their voices. And so the fact that you still sing like angels is great because some people they can't do it anymore. They didn't take good
Mhm.
care of themselves. So you're very fortunate. And I feel very fortunate that we were able to connect today for Right On Magazine, which is a magazine that is very iconic, that started in the 70s and still continues on as a digital platform. But I,
That's wonderful. That
yeah,
that is legendary in
yeah.
and of itself.
Yeah, so I want to thank you. And if someone were to follow you on social media, which is the platform that they should follow? Instagram
We
or
we
Facebook?
Facebook is the place. I manage the Chantels. It's called the Legendary Chantels. I manage that page. I'm not as conscientious as I used to be. I'm older and they're and they keep updating it and it keeps getting harder and harder to negotiate. But I try to keep as current as possible. I try to keep up with what's going on with other people as well as what we're doing. And so usually I am the only one who answers when people ask questions or if they make comments about us on that page. So that's where they would find us, is the
Okay.
legendary
Well,
Chantels.
thank you so much for the interview, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.
Well, Cynthia, it was certainly a pleasure talking with you, and keep on doing what you do.
Okay, thank you.